I got a judge on my channel. Man, I didn't do nothing wrong. Don't arrest me. I didn't do
Not yet. Not yet. He hasn't.
Shoot the sheriff, and I definitely didn't shoot the deputy. Come on, man. Don't shoot because you own strong inspirations. Well, we give it to you straight, no chaser. I got a guy, I know he know what he's talking about because he lands down the law, everybody. Oh, my God. This is unbelievable. I'm so happy that he's on my channel and that you get a chance to hear what he's going to talk about in a city that we heard a lot about during the time, Mobile, Alabama. And so before we go to that, I want you to do me a favor, my friends, my viewers. Y'all become my family. I don't even know who you are, but I know I love you. I want you to hit the subscribe button and subscribe to this because I'm going to keep coming at you until you do. And then when you do, I'm going to come at you some more. I want you to like this video right here. And all the other videos that you've been watching, I want you to hit that bell so that you know when I come out with new videos that you got the ding so you can be first in line to watch it. And you know what else I like for you to do is tell somebody about strong inspiration. I really appreciate if you would do that and let this thing grow. I got a movie out. I'm a filmmaker. It's called Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America. And we talk about Black folks doing the thing since we've been here, and we've been here even before 1619, but we talk about slaves and how they learn how to read and write and then become judges and lawyers and all that good stuff. It's in my movie. We also give you a little bit of what them racist people tried to do to destroy our business district, running freeways right through the middle of them. You know they did that. They did it in Detroit and many other cities. But then I got Black millionaires in the 1800s in my film. It's so good that, and the film is on Amazon where it's just streaming. You ain't got to get the DVD. You can just watch it on your laptop. And then I came out with the book. It's called Black Business Book. The book got over 200 facts. It's unbelievable stuff. And the thing about it is you're going to be like, man, I don't believe that. I give you where I found it in the back. And I number the facts so that you could be telling your buddy, man, did you read fact 47, fact 99, fact 118? It's easy to get to them. And that's Black Business Book. It's on Amazon also. But if you get the hard copy, I'll autograph it. Because you ain't gonna be able to read my writing, no. But maybe that might be good, but I'll autograph it. And it's on Amazon. And also go to my website, inspirationsbystrong.com. Everything is strong in my world. The stronger I've been saying strong along, that good word. And so without further ado, I got a guy, I know he on the clock. They got people he got to see and tell and help influence their lives. That's what the judges really do, because they come in and they try to help people. And especially, I know this guy, that's what he does. But he's out of Mobile, Alabama. So, brother, man, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, good afternoon. I am Judge Carlos Finley, and I serve for the City of Mobile's Municipal Court. I'm also a lawyer in private practice, so I'm somewhat of a slash. I sit on the bench, but I also represent people in private practice also. But I'm the president of the Dora Franklin Finley African American Heritage Trail. That has been in existence about 16 years now. My sister Dora Franklin Finley was the founder of the organization, and our goal is to mark and educate, highlighting all of those significant contributions that African Americans have made right here in the city of Mobile, which is 318 years old.
Wow, that's incredible. So you got 3 jobs. you handling things, and I know you're doing other stuff too.
Even more than that.
So, you grew up in Mobile?
I was born in Mobile. I lived here until I was 9, and then I moved to Cedar Rapids, Iowa for about 6 months, and my mom finally found her way to Ann Arbor, Michigan. And we lived there for the next 8 years, and I came back to Mobile and graduated high school my senior year.
Man, that's all right. That, you know, Ann Arbor, I'm out of Detroit. Ann Arbor's just up the road. I go up there and try to sneak into football games and the basketball games at the university.
Just down 94. I actually lived in Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, and Belleville while I was there.
Okay. So you know, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mhm.
How does it feel to be in Mobile? You know,
Today it feels great because it's about 70 degrees.
Yeah. Well, now now I hear the dig there. But I mean, how does it feel to be in Mobile? Because you know, I hear Mobile as I see the movies and the civil rights and all that. It sounded like Mobile was dangerous back in those days for Black folks. Is that some of that's true and the racial things that happened down there?
Of course it is. I mean, when you talk about back in the day, you know, in the early 1900s, we had 5 lynchings here in the city of Mobile. Wow. And then when you move forward to the 1960s, my parents were both civil rights advocates.
Really?
My father spent 13 months in a federal penitentiary because of his activities in the civil rights movement here in Mobile, Alabama.
Who spent 13 months?
My father.
Really?
Yes, sir.
So you remember that?
Of course. Well, it's very impactful when your father goes to the penitentiary. And that happened in 1972. So I was 7 years old and he came home and I was 8. Unfortunately, he passed away 6 months after being released from the Atlanta Federal Penal Institution. And I was 9 years of age.
Okay. I mean, since you brought it up, I guess you don't mind saying, was that because of some civil rights stuff that happened?
Most definitely. Most definitely. My father was the vice president of an organization called Neighborhood Organized Workers. The acronym NOW was the message that they put forth. And in 1968, they boycotted the America's Junior Miss contest. It's called the Distinguished Young Woman of America contest today, but it has traditionally been held in the city of Mobile. And at the time, our largest municipal facility, the auditorium, was making a lot of money off of African-American entertainers like James Brown and Jackson 5 and Isaac Hayes, but there was no African-American management at that facility. So my father and his organization boycotted that facility. And at that boycott, my sister, the founder of our organization, Dora Franklin Finley, and my mother, Joycelyn Finley, who was the first teacher to teach Black history in the Mobile County Public School System, were arrested. And they were arrested and taken to jail and placed in the hole, which is at the bottom of the jail. And my father was never one to boycott, because when your organization boycotts and gets thrown to jail, someone has to be out to bail them out. And so that was his piece. And so he bailed them out the next day. But because of those activities and standing up for African Americans gaining economic foundations here in the city of Mobile, he was brought up on trumped up charges with everything from murder to drug trafficking to extortion. Wow. And ultimately, he was convicted of income tax evasion because they said that he did not pay $2,500 for our housekeeper's Social Security income taxes.
Wow. Man, I'm sorry to hear that, brother. Man,
yeah, so was I as a 7-year-old boy.
Yeah. And so, okay, wait, I'm gonna just take one more minute on that story. So who you think did all this? Was it was a judge or the AD? Who kind of really went after them?
It was the society. You see, you're talking about the 60s and the 70s. It was a systemic thing, much as it is today, that we deal with systemic issues. So there was a system of superiority here in the city of Mobile. And my father was an entrepreneur. He owned 7 drugstores. He was a pharmacist by trade.
Really?
And so he didn't have to answer to anyone for his livelihood. So
Yeah.
throughout the era, you know, if a person stood up and began to talk about equality and things of that nature, well, they would just go to his boss and say, hey, look, man, you better tell him to be quiet or else he's not gonna have a job. And so that putting food on the table will stop people from saying things. But they couldn't do that with my father because he was a business owner. And so it was the system that was in place, the people who were the moneyed interest in our city who had things exactly the way they wanted them that came up against him. And those people are made up of federal prosecutors and district attorneys and state judges and federal judges. Because my father's last case was in the federal court of the Southern District of Mobile, Alabama, and Alabama. It's very ironic that I actually sit on the bench today in a city that convicted my father wrongly for a federal crime.
Unbelievable. So now, was there a black guy in Mobile that was like, you know, really revolution, you know, like, you know, that local guy that wasn't, you know, that was fighting for civil rights down there? I know your dad was one of them, but were there others that really, we know their names even more so maybe, or not necessarily?
There was an organization, forgive me. There was an organization, the Neighborhood Organized Workers, that was made up of people within the community. My father was the vice president. Noble Beasley was the president. O.C. Weeks was the secretary, and a gentleman by the name of Fred Richardson was the treasurer. So yes, there were other foot soldiers. And look,
that's what I call them.
These were people who started in '68. The city of Mobile is, as I said, 318 years old. So we had men at the turn of the century in 1900, A.N. Johnson, C. First Johnson. Those guys were members and leaders of the Republican Party, because at that time, it was truly the party of Lincoln. And so they were getting sitting presidents to come to Mobile about racial issues and issues of equality. Teddy Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson visited the city of Mobile at the behest of A.N. Johnson, who owned a newspaper called the Mobile Weekly Press at the turn of the century. He was also a mortician. He owned the first drugstore opened in Mobile that served African Americans. And he was a poet. I mean, he was just an amazing man. And
I got you.
You know, at the turn of the century, we're talking about 1899, 1900. C. First Johnson, you mentioned millionaires earlier. C. First Johnson was a millionaire in the city of Mobile in 1915. He owned an insurance company. He had sold over $9 million worth of insurance and had paid out $3 million in policies.
Wow, man, that's deep.
In the heart of the South, in Jim Crow, United States.
Yeah, you took me on another level there. So now let's go. Man, I got love for you, man. Ooh. But let's go back. Let's go back a little further than that on Mobile. Mobile is where in Alabama? It says on the water, or where's Mobile?
Mobile is the southernmost city in Alabama. Now, below Mobile, you have an island called Dauphin Island.
Okay.
And then you have a island between Dauphin Island and Mobile called Montlouis Island. But Mobile is the southernmost city in the state of Alabama.
Okay.
We rest on the shores of the Mobile Bay, which has 5 rivers that flows into it. And it's called the Amazon of North America because there's so many rivers and species of animals and things like that. And so we're a very, very southern city. As I said, it's like 76 degrees today. And the sun is shining.
So now Mobile, it has a long history in civil rights, but when did black folks start getting there? Let's go back to some of that beginning stuff that you want to talk about.
Well, the city of Mobile was discovered by the Lemoyne brothers. Louis Bienville and his brother d'Iberville, who were from Quebec, Canada, but they were sent to the Gulf of Mexico to find a route to the Mississippi River. So as they went up the coast of Florida, they came to the Mobile Bay and they rested here at a place called 27 Mile Bluff. That was in 1702. Well, they had African concubines. So when they got here in 1702, their African concubines came as well.
Now, hold on, let me stop. The concubine, that's women, right?
Excuse me?
The concubine is women?
That's correct. And when they came here, their concubines came with them. So the oldest church in the state of Alabama is the Cathedral Basilica of the Immaculate Conception. It's a Catholic church. And the oldest record, Volume 1, Article 1, makes record of the first baptism of a child in that church. That child's name was Jean-Baptiste, and his godfather was Jean-Baptiste Le Monsieur de Bienville, the founder of our city. The year was 1707. The child was 5 years of age, meaning that he was born in 1702, the founding of the year of Mobile, Alabama.
Now these are white people though. These are white people, right? What you're talking about now?
No, the child was of African and French descent.
Oh.
The child's mother was an African concubine.
Oh, so the white guy get with the black lady. Oh, I got you. So then it goes from there.
Correct, just like the rest of the United States.
Is Mobile, now this is during slavery time. So now slaves start coming to Mobile, black people start coming to Mobile. Where does the black influence come from?
The first black influence comes from those African concubines.
I got you.
And the Fort Condi that's here in Mobile, the original brick fort was built by 5 free Africans who were brick masons, along with Native American slaves and African American slaves. So here in Mobile, we really had 3 races of people.
Okay.
We had whites or Europeans, we had Africans who were slaves, and we had the Creole Doctrine, who were a mixture of Africans and Europeans and Native Americans, and they were free people. They had every right that any white person or European had, with the exception of the right of suffrage. They could not vote. They could own property, they could own slaves. They walked about freely, but they could not ever vote.
Because you're free if your mother was free.
Not necessarily. That's not a hard and fast rule.
Really?
You gotta realize there were people who were recaptured back into slavery. There were people who were free, who were brought back into slavery or sold back into slavery that lived in the North. There were free black people who lived in the North who were sold into slavery and captured by slave catchers. But the dynamic has nothing to do with your mother or your father. It has to do with your status.
All right, how about this one? Okay, I'm free and I'm black, and the people over there, they're not free. How do the people know who's free and not? I mean, is there a card do you think they carried, or?
There were freedmen papers, but here in Mobile, specific to Mobile, your lineage is known. See, Mobile's not a really big city. It's a very large town now, but it was certainly a tiny place during that time. So everyone knew who your father was or who your mother was. So your mother could have come here as a free African who was a concubine, and your father may have been one of the discoverers of this city. And I use the term discoverer lightly, because there were Native Americans here when those Europeans and Africans arrived.
Sure.
But because people knew who people were, it was not hard to keep up with who was free and who was slave.
All right, but then this goes to that question. This question here. Okay, so I'm free because of my mother, but like you just said, they were going up north, capturing people and putting them in freedom and enslaving them. If I'm free, why don't they just do me that and I'm living down the street?
I'm not understanding your question.
Why don't, if I'm a free person, person, why don't the guy who's enslaving people just take me off instead of going,
because they know your lineage.
Free up north or whatever.
Because they know your lineage, and your parents aren't going to just let them do that.
Okay.
I mean, look, if you're Black and your father is the founder of the city, nobody's going to make you a slave unless your father says it's okay.
And he could do that?
Of course he could do that. White men could do anything that they wanted to do in this country.
I got you.
I mean, Thomas Jefferson had Sally Hemings, and all of his children were slaves, and Sally Hemings was a slave until she died.
Yeah.
And the children remained slaves until he died.
Is Mobile Gullah Geechee?
No, that's Eastern Shore. You're talking about Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina.
Okay.
They're from that region.
Okay.
The southern region are not. We have Cajuns and Creoles.
What does that mean?
A Cajun is just a term that's short for Acadian because of the southern dialect. So the Europeans and the French that came here were from Canada. So in Canada, you have Arcadians, the French Canadians.
I got you.
And so they came here, and because of the dialect, over years, they just became Cajuns.
I got you.
Then the Creole Doctrine was signed in 1806. And that was the Adams and Onez Treaty, which defined what a Creole was.
Okay.
And it was a person who was of African, European, and or Native American descent.
I got you. So now when I think of Mobile, and maybe you can explain it, Mobile is not the same dynamic as Birmingham per se.
No, it's not, because number one, Birmingham didn't come into being until the late 1800s. So it's a baby city compared to us. We were in existence over 200 years before Birmingham came into being. That's why Birmingham is called the Magic City, because it grew so fast, because they discovered iron in the Red Mountain, and U.S. Steel set up shop there, and the city grew overnight because of its natural resources. But Birmingham is a young child city compared to Mobile.
Okay, but now Mobile is more associated in that region with New Orleans.
They're our sister city, because
I got you.
Bienville and D'Iberville, who discovered Mobile, then next went to Louisiana and discovered New Orleans, because they found that entryway to the Mississippi River that they were looking for.
I got you. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So now there are a lot of free Blacks in Mobile, and there are a lot of enslaved Blacks in the Mobile.
That's correct.
Now, does the slave Blacks come from the same migration as they come from the northern, like the Virginia and the South Carolina, or is that from?
We were a slave port in and of ourselves.
Okay.
So just like slaves came in to Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, they also came in from the Gulf to Mobile and New Orleans and Pensacola, in those areas.
Okay, and now how about this? And the slave Blacks that came through Mobile were more of a Spanish, under Spanish ownership, where the ones otherwise were maybe under British.
Not so much.
Oh, really?
It's more the French.
Yeah, the French. The
United States partnered with France and Spain to beat the British in 1776.
Yeah.
And then again, in the French American Wars and the British American War of 1812. We had to go through the whole thing all over again. We partnered with France and Spain to defeat the British.
Okay, we getting somewhere. How about this? Now, were the French that had the slaves down in Mobile, were they as vicious as the other enslavers?
Slavery is a vicious system. I don't care where you are and who you are. In the United States of America, slavery was savage because we have chattel slavery in the
Yeah, okay,
United
okay,
States.
okay.
It's different from servitude, where you
Yeah,
can
right,
work your
right,
way
right.
out of it, which is what's in Africa and other areas in Europe and things of that nature, and in biblical times
I got
even.
you. I got you.
Once you were a slave in the United States, you were a slave, your children were slaves, and you were that way until
So
the day
okay,
you
but
died.
but
So
but
whether
but
you were
but
in
the
North
French
Carolina,
did
South
have some.
Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, Arkansas, Florida, it was savage and
I
vicious.
got you. I got you. But the French but they did have a few rules that maybe were a little more amenable for black people. Did I ever hear that, or not necessarily that, you know?
If you're a slave, brother,
Yeah,
you're
you're
a
a slave.
slave.
You're a
There ain't
slave.
no
Right, right.
amenable rules.
Is there an Indian influence in Mobile?
Most definitely, because Native Americans were here when the Europeans and Africans got here. So we have the Choctaw, Moa tribes. We have Chickasaw tribes. They were all here.
And the Indians had slaves too.
No, no.
Okay.
Native Americans, you have to understand. So Native Americans, there were no Indians. When Columbus called them Indians when he got here because he was lost. He thought he was in India. So you have Native American tribes here, Apaches,
Yeah.
Sioux,
Yeah.
Choctaw, Chickasaw. They would certainly take slaves from each other's tribes,
Okay.
but it was servitude. So
Yeah.
at some point you could work your way out of that.
Okay.
But there were no Native Americans with African slaves.
All right. All right. What was the crop of to be grown in Mobile? Was it cotton also, or something else?
Actually, no, and that's a distinction for Mobile. Mobile has always been a metropolitan city. So the forms of slavery that were here were more technical and laborious, such as stevedoring and things. They were tradesmen, getting fish off of the ships, unloading ships, because we're a seaport town. So the agrarian form of slavery, when you talk about crops and things of that nature, that was more Baldwin County, which is the other side of our Mobile Bay, and further up into Montgomery and Birmingham. And that's a real distinction because, you know, there's a difference between a tradesperson and a field slave.
Does that mean that it's not as hard as a field slave? Maybe.
You know, I don't know, man, because if I'm a slave, it's all hard.
Yeah, it's still all hard. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, you ain't. Okay. Now, so Mobile is known for some, and I'm going up the timeline as we move along here. Mobile is known for some civil rights issues, right?
Not until the 60s, but let me say this. When you talk about history of civil rights in Mobile, you've got to start at the turn of the century, from the 18th to the 19th century. And those men that I mentioned, C. First Johnson,
right.
A.N. Johnson, who were compatriots of men like Booker T. Washington and Clarence Allen. And then you go into the 1920s, where a man named John L. LaFleur became the president of the NAACP and began to grow that organization with other men like Wiley Bolden. And then those men wrote a lot of letters. In other words, they were writing letters to voter registrars, and they were having sit-ins and things of that nature, but they weren't really making significant gains. And so in 1959, Martin Luther King came to the city of Mobile for the first and only time, because when he got here, he drew such a large crowd. Those whites who were in power sent little notes to the preachers who invited him, and those folks and said, look, don't have him come back here again. We've got a system in place. He's going to mess it up for you if you bring it back here. And so nothing really happened until the late 60s when that organization that I mentioned, now with Noble Beasley as president, my father as vice president, began to invoke civil disobedience.
Did they have a bloody, were they a part of the bloody summers of the 1920s that you might know of, you know, because there was a lot of riots back then, the guys coming home from the war and the white folks, you know, upset at them taking.
When you're talking about World War I?
Yeah.
No, there were, like I said, there was a lynching. The last lynching occurred here in Mobile in 1919. But there were certainly other, when I say lynchings, not necessarily hangings, but killings of Black men by white men or white mobs in 1947, because we had a large, Air Force Base here, Brooklyn Field. There was a large population of African Americans who worked there. And so Mr. Rayfield Davis was on his way home from work one day on the bus, and a white man told him, get up and move, because that was going to be his seat. And he whispered under his breath, one day we're going to have equal rights just like y'all. And the man waited until he got off of the bus and beat him to death with a pole and threw him in a ditch. So the organization that I represent erected a marker speaking to his death and passing and killing, as well as 6 or 7 others who did the same. We had a city bus driver to shoot and kill a Black man because he didn't want to move to a certain place. We had police officers who killed soldiers who were in uniform that were African Americans. So I don't know that there's a bloody summer at any point, but there are certainly slayings and racially motivated violent crimes visited upon African Americans throughout the history of our city, just like every other city in the United States.
When you talk about those lynchings, are there, do you know where they happen? Is there like a marker, or is there something to say the lynching happened here, or that's the tree, or?
Well, actually, I'm working with an organization right now, the Equal Justice Initiative. They have a legacy museum you may have heard of in Montgomery, and a lynching memorial. So we recently, in fact, last month, went and collected soil at the sites of those 5 lynchings that
they happened at the same time
in Mobile. No, they happened over years. They happened over the course of years. Between 1906 and, as I said, the last one was 1919.
Well, as we come to a close,
we're going to erect markers at those sites. So that's an initiative that's in progress right now.
Okay, good. As we come to a close, tell us about your museum. Where is it located, and what's the website and that kind of thing?
We're a trail.
A trail? Oh, really?
Yes. So the way our trail works is that you give us a call and schedule a tour. We have a motor coach that we take you into, and we call it a time machine, because we take you back to the beginning of when the city started, and we travel all throughout the city of Mobile, and we have historic markers erected that tell the story of the significant act, person, or location. And we give you the history of the city of Mobile. So it's a docent-led tour on our motor coach. And it takes about 2 hours, 2.5 hours to get through.
Is there a festival in Mobile that Black people come together to celebrate something?
Well, we have a Juneteenth festival that occurs annually out in Africa Town, because, you know, Mobile is the site where the last slave ship came into the United States in 1860, the schooner Clotilda. And we found it 2 years ago at the bottom of the Mobile River. It was an illegal act by a wealthy landowner named Timothy Mayer, who bet some of his colleagues that he could bring in a load of Africans because it had become illegal to do so in 1808. Slavery itself was not illegal, but importing Africans into the United States became illegal in 1808. This voyage occurred in 1860. So we give that history as well on our tour. That's one of the stops on our tours, the story of Africatown, the schooner Clotilda, and so forth and so on.
I got you. Last question. Is there a question that I have not asked you, something that you...
There is the question of how people can contact us and avail themselves to this history.
Yeah, please.
So you can log on to dffaAht.org and take a tour and hear all of this history on your own, or you can contact us on Facebook at Dora Franklin Finley African American Heritage Trail. Twitter at DFFAAHT. And on Instagram at DFFAAHT1.
Okay, I got you. Cool. I'm
glad
you got that in, brother. I'm glad. Yeah, good. Thank you so very much for being on the channel. And you got me through it, because I knew Mobile, but all of that Black history. Oh, one more question. Mobile got a big Mardi Gras, don't they?
Mobile is the birthplace of Mardi Gras in the United States of America. New Orleans is our younger but bigger sister city. You know, Louisiana didn't come into being until the early 1800s. We were in existence 100 years before they became a state. So Mobile is the birthplace of Mardi Gras. This is where it started, and we look forward to being able to celebrate again next year.
And it's all the floats, just like like New Orleans and the whole shot, right?
No, New Orleans is like Mobile.
There you go. Way to put it. I like it, brother. Go ahead. So I tell you, I thank you so much for being on Strong Inspirations and correcting me and staying strong for that Mobile, Alabama.
It's been my pleasure, man. Come back and see us soon.
I'm coming down there, that's for certain. I want to say to you, though, I really, in all sincerity, I really thank you for being on the channel, man, and telling us this story. And so I wish that you stay strong, you stay safe, you stay on your grind, doing what you're doing and helping those people and helping the people around the world understand the beauty of the Black folks down in Mobile. Just keep doing it, man, and we're gonna make it happen. I thank you for being on the channel. Thank you, and we out. Bye-bye.
My pleasure. Y'all have a good day.
You too.